I'm your host, Ariel Willow. Welcome to Ghost Tea Podcast, a podcast for those who seek magic. Hello, ghosties. I am so glad to be back with you all again. I'm so glad that I took the time that I needed to kind of process things. And, processing does take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but I feel much better than I did last month. So that is an improvement. I'm going to take that as a win. I also want to mention that just due to the subject matter in today's episode, it's probably not appropriate for people under the age of 18. So if you listen with your kiddos or anything like that, just keep that in mind. Use your discretion when listening. If you are someone who doesn't feel comfortable with topics of sexuality or sexual matters, keep that in mind as we go through the episode. And if you are feeling triggered or anything like that, just come back and listen to it later or just skip this episode. Those topics won't be covered as deeply as they are and explicitly as they are in my sex magic episode, but I did want to mention that just in case it happens to be something that people want to look out for. And as always, I just want to remind you that everybody has different views on things, and that's okay. I just want to share what I've found that works for me in my personal practice and share my thoughts on things. So hopefully it helps you build your own personal practice. So with that said, let's jump into things. Now, having said that, the topic that I want to go over today is a couple different things that I feel like kind of go together, which is cord removal, energy recall, and revitalizing your energy when it has been drained from you, either intentionally or unintentionally, and how to kind of protect yourself in that regard, because inevitably that stuff happens. And I want you all to be able to have the tools available to you to be able to address those things when it happens, so that you're not freaking out if you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I have this cord that's attached to me and I don't know what to do with it. So, the first thing that we need to start with is explaining what energetic cords are, because this will help you to understand why it's beneficial to be able to be aware of how to kind of reset things. So, energetic cords, which I'm sure you've probably heard of the saying, I'm doing a cord removal or I'm doing a cord cutting ritual or something like that, that does have to do with energetic cords. And I have talked about this in previous episodes, but I feel like I have a little bit more tools and knowledge at my disposal than I did then that could be helpful in regards to this topic and kind of further going into not just removing them, but also recalling your energy as well, which we didn't go over previously. So, cords are created between you and other people every time you interact with them. So, for example, if you work at a grocery store, right, and you are interacting with people and you're talking with them or you are checking them out at the check stand or things like that, you are creating an energetic cord with that person. And this tends to happen unintentionally, because in order to have a connection with someone, we want to be able to reach out empathetically or reach out with our energy to be able to connect. And I think that's why there are times when you will extend yourself towards people, whether you're aware of it or not, but then you just won't feel like it's received, right? Because there is an energy that also has to be reciprocal to that connection. And you can feel it when it's not. If someone does not want to talk to you and they do not have their energy open to connecting, you're going to feel it because it's just going to kind of bounce off. So when you have communication or connection with people who are mutually open to connecting, whether that is through unintentional situations or intentional, like a date or meeting with a friend or talking with family members, you create an energetic connection between you and that person. This can also happen through technology. So let's say that you are talking to someone over the phone, or you're texting with someone, or you're emailing with someone. Or, for example, for me, when I'm on live stream, I'm creating energetic connections with everybody on that live stream who interacts with me. So there's those connections that you make with other people, and those are just there and they don't really ever go away. Now, obviously, this is something that happens to people all the time, every day, all day, right? It's not really something that you can necessarily control because that's just something that happens. It's the way that we connect. And there are people who will go their entire lives without ever doing a cord removal or, whatever, and they will be fine. And so I definitely don't want to make it seem like if you're not doing cord removal or you're not calling your energy back, you're destined to be doomed or anything like that. I think it's really important to mention that this is something where if you did nothing moving forward in your life, you would probably be okay. However, I have noticed that within my personal practice and my work and things of that nature, it really does make a difference when I'm able to do this. So that's why I'm sharing it with you today. So definitely don't want to cause any kind of panic or any kind of situation where you are thinking that you have to be doing this all the time or you're doing something wrong. This is just something that I'm sharing for the benefit, hopefully, for you moving forward. Now, just to reiterate, you have lived your entire life up until this point, or up until the point where you learned about energetic cords, not really knowing anything about them. So it's very possible that for most people, this might not be as much of an issue. But for some, they might find that it just improves their practice or improves their lives or how they feel if they are addressing those cords and being able to remove their energies. So I think we should go over what are some things that can be happening possibly if you have a energetic cord connection with someone that has kind of become, I don't want to say toxic or a problem because that makes it sound more malicious than it is, but just maybe it's kind of withered. And you know how like the plants get withered and sometimes they get kind of slimy? That's what I think about. It's not necessarily toxic in the sense that someone's purposefully sending something bad or, intentionally trying to F someone up, right? It's not always that. Sometimes connections just die, but they're still connected, but there isn't enough nutrients going between that connection to keep it healthy. So for example, maybe you have a ex that you had a breakup with and the breakup wasn't bad. It was just mutually agreed upon that you just didn't belong in each other's lives anymore, right? And so that connection has technically died, but there's no nutrients happening. And what I mean by nutrients is the interactions that you have with them on the everyday that are helping to vitalize that connection. Communication, love, affection, care, empathy, things like that, that you give within friendships or familial connections where there's a lot of love, or relationships where you are connecting to someone on a soul level, right? Those are all what I would call, quote, nutrients that help vitalize a energetic connection to someone and help you to maintain that healthy cord. But when that nutrients goes away, then you're just left with this like withered cord, but it's still attached to you. So it doesn't mean that things can't be felt, can't be happening between that connection, but it's going to be different, or it's maybe not even going to be as beneficial as it was before. A lot of symptoms that you can experience with an energetic connection that isn't necessarily helping you anymore can also be very similar to just the normal process of grieving and moving forward in life. So I do want to have that mentioned there, that I'm definitely not trying to say that any kind of mental health standard is a spiritual thing, because mundane over magic, right? But I do find that at least within my personal life, when I have had energetic connections with people in the past where it's just not really healthy anymore, sometimes I get into a place where it's harder for me not to obsess about what happened, or it's harder for me to be able to not feel like it's constantly in the back of my mind, right? Like they did this, or this was said, or this upset me, or things like that, which again, like I said, is normal about processing, but it's also something where I have had times where I've experienced those and then done a cord removal and had that essentially cease and or not become as difficult for me to kind of direct my attention away from. Because whether it is a psychological placebo effect or something that is more magical or spiritual in nature, if you will, it has helped me to move on from those situations and helped me to process things in a way that is not as emotionally tumultuous. So, a quick little simple bullet list of possible things that could be connected to having an energetic cord that maybe you just want to remove or, have the energy not really passing through anymore. You might be dreaming about this person a lot, whether they're good dreams or bad dreams. You might be noticing that when you think about this person, then it ends up that something kind of off happens in your life. So maybe you spill your coffee a lot that day, or you end up not having as much money come in that day, or things like that, where you're just like, that's a little bit out of my norm. It could also be something where you end up feeling ill that day. So maybe you have a dream about them, and then the following day you just don't feel good in your body. Or maybe you are struggling to focus or things of that nature. So, again, just want to reiterate, mundane over magic, right? These are all things that can happen when we are emotionally or subconsciously or mentally processing situations that happen in our lives with people. But there is a part of this where that energetic connection has this open channel for that person to unintentionally or intentionally send energy your way. So if that person has a thought of, wow, that person really sucked, right? That's something that they're sending down that energetic pathway. So if they are gossiping about you, if they are talking shit about you, if they are wishing you well, if they're wishing you love, that is all stuff that's getting sent to you if you have that energetic channel open. So it's always nice to be able to cut off those connections or remove those connections so that any kind of energies, whether good or bad, that are being sent from that person from your past or from your current situation is not coming into your energetic space. Okay, so we have established the possible symptoms that you could be experiencing if you have a cord that just needs to be removed. And one thing that I do want to specify is a lot of people say cord cutting. I like to use the word removal just because the analogy that I've always used is wax, don't shave, because shaving leaves behind the bulb of the hair, right? The hair can grow back very easily. But with removal, you're removing the hair follicle, right? So like it's less likely to grow back, and or if it does, it's going to become thinner and thinner the more that you do it, eventually leading to maybe no hair growing there, right? So I know that's kind of a weird, maybe gross way to explain it, but that's how I imagine energetic cords. Imagine them like hair follicles in your energetic space, because the visual helps you to understand why it can be important to constantly be removing these cords. Because if we're going to compare it to hair, hair needs nutrients to grow, right? So, because of that, when we remove the hair, it's removing something that would need nutrients to grow so that nutrients can kind of stay where it is instead of being output into something that we don't really care about being there, you know? So there's two different types of removal that I think could be helpful for you to know about. The first is just a general cord removal. And this is what I commonly do just because, listen, I have too many people that I interact with every day where if I was going to do specific cord removals, it would just take me forever. And cords are going to continuously be reinstated every time you interact with someone. So, oftentimes when I say just remove all cords, people kind of freak out because they're like, well, what if I want to still have a cord attached to my best friend? Or what if I want to still have a cord attached to, my grandmother who's passed, right? Those cords are going to continue when you have interactions with them. So it's not something that you have to worry about. With someone who is passed, if that is something that you're concerned about, spirit does not have to have something where you need to be interacting with them on a physical level to be able to connect that, right? You can call in their energy because you miss them or when you're talking to them, and sending them good thoughts. That is creating an energetic connection. So just because they have passed doesn't mean you can't have an energetic cord with them. So I want to make sure that that's stated because I know that that's something that freaks people out sometimes. So having said that, I personally would recommend most people, if not everybody, just does a general cord removal because it's basically just clearing the slate. Now, how often you do this is completely up to you. So you can do this every day, like I do, or you can do it once a week, you can do it once a month, you can do it once a year, whatever feels good for you. And only you're going to know that. You're going to have to experiment a little bit, put on your, you know, mad scientist's cap, or make your hair spread out like it's reaching out to the gods, and just make yourself look like a mad scientist if you want, if that helps your process. But like, you're gonna have to experiment and try a bunch of different ways of doing this to see what feels best for you, whether that is doing a cord removal once a day, twice a day, once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever works for you. So, with general cord removal, where you are just removing all cords, the thing that I would recommend is either simply stating out loud and imagining cords being removed. So, just saying something out loud or in your head. I prefer out loud, it just feels more powerful, but you can say it in your head too, where you're just stating, I am removing all energetic cords attached to me at this moment, right? And as you're saying that, just imagine either your energetic bubble or your energetic body slash self, whatever you imagine. You can imagine a big wax strip just removing all of the cords. Sometimes I imagine taking them out one by one, like a spiritual me going outside of my energy and like pulling them out one by one. Sometimes that helps me to get more of a better result, but sometimes I just imagine like a big wax strip, or sometimes you can imagine them just disappearing or disintegrating or becoming sand and just falling away. Whatever works for you, whatever visualization. If you're not someone who has an easy time visualizing, or you're someone who doesn't have the capability to visualize things, you can also draw it on a physical piece of paper. Like, draw a little stick figure body that represents you. And as you're drawing that stick figure body, you can imagine your energy being infused into that drawing through the pen or the pencil. And then draw a bunch of little lines coming out from your body. And then if you're using a pencil, you can erase them, right? And create that removal from your body that way. Or you can draw them with pen and then start, imagining them being pulled away from the stick figure body. Whatever works for you. If you need a visual or a physical example, you can do that. Another thing that you could do if you want to get super fancy with it is have a whiteboard or something like that, or like magnets that you put on your fridge, and imagine yourself as the fridge. Right? And say, this refrigerator, this metal piece, or this metal, whatever it is that you're using, represents me in this moment. And these magnets attached to it represent the energetic cords on my energy field right now. And just take off the magnets from that thing that's representing you. And as you're doing it, say, I'm removing all energetic cords from my energetic body at this moment. And so that can be a good visualization tool for people who can't really visualize in their heads but have an easier time with physical examples or drawn examples. And that's literally it for the general one. It's really that simple. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I did start off with cord removal by asking a deity to do it, and or an angel to do it at the beginning, because I didn't feel confident enough in my own ability to remove the cords myself, that I preferred to just ask a deity around me that I trust to do it for me. So in the beginning, it was me calling on Archangel Michael to remove all cords. And then for a while, I would just call on, one of my patron deities or the deities that I was working with to do it for me. So something along the lines of I call upon or I request XYZ, whoever you're calling on, to remove all cords from my energetic body. I know there are going to be some of you who will ask whether or not you need to be giving offerings if you're doing that. I never did. I'm sure that they would appreciate it if you did, but I don't personally think it's necessary. But if you're feeling called to give them an offering as a thank you, then go ahead and do so, but don't do so because of a fear of them being retaliatory if you don't, because that's not the case. It's something where it is important to remember that giving them offerings, especially for things like that, is optional, right? It's appreciated, but it's optional. And so, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I think it's better to rely on yourself to do that, simply because then you don't really have to feel that fear of, oh, should I give them an offering or something like that. It kind of takes the anxiety away from it. But if you do choose to call on a deity or an angel or, any kind of other entity that you work with that you trust to do this for you, then if you feel that you want to give them an offering, awesome, do it. But if you don't, it's totally fine and it's not always necessary. Follow your gut. If your gut is saying, yes, give an offering, do it. If not, don't let your fear convince you that you need to. Okay, so let's say that there is a specific person or a specific situation that you want to be removing your energy from. So if there is someone specific that you're wanting to remove your cord connection with, what I would recommend is either utilizing the visualization tools. So if you are someone who struggles with visualizing things or imagining things, use that pen and paper example again, right? Have um, two people, like two stick figures, or however detailed you want to get with it. Like I would use stick figures, okay, because I'm not an artist in that regard. But if you have more of a drawing talent, draw to your heart's content about how specific you want it to be. But it can also just be like two lines if you don't even want to do stick figures. But have something that visually represents it in a physical way, whether that's on paper or you can even use two crystals if you want. Sometimes people will use two candles and do like a cord removal candle burn down, but I'm trying to keep this super simple, right? Like you can do the whole cord removal spell, which let's go through that really quick because I know that some people are going to be like, I want to do the spell, which cool if you want to do that. That's really cool. Basically, what you would do is you would just take two candles, whether that's birthday candles. You can also use just tea light candles. You can use taper candles, chime candles, whatever works, whatever you have on hand. And ideally, they would be candles where you can tie a string or some sort of thread between them, right? So you twirl it around one a little bit, then bring it over to the other one, twirl it around that one. And then you would position them on a table. You can use putty to keep them on the candle burning surface. You can also, stick them down with wax. You can stick them in two bowls with salt or sand, whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat, feels good. And imagine one candle being you and one candle being the other person. You can do this with multiple people, like having three candles, four candles, whatever. I would recommend keeping it to three or less just because of, ease. It's going to get more complicated and harder to maintain and not get frustrated with if you're doing more than two or three. But I digress. If you feel like you want to do a four candle, cord removal, you go for it. But using the two candle method, you're just going to have some sort of physical connector between the two. And usually people use thread or string of some kind. And then you can either carve your name into one of the candles and then carve the name of the other person into the other candle. I like to include birthdays if you have them, just because for me that makes it a little bit more specific. If you have middle names, that's even better. Um, But whatever feels right. If you only have their first and last name, that is okay too, because you can visualize them in your head when you're doing this. You can optionally add things to each candle. So if you're wanting to protect yourself further, you can put protective herbs or ingredients on or around your candle, which if you're putting them on the candle, as in like dressing your candle with herbs, just practice fire safety. Know that herbs can catch fire, right? So if you are having a candle burn down, like don't dress it in a huge amount of herbs so that it's going to basically explode, right? If you're dressing it with oils, don't douse it in oils, because remember, like oil can cause oil fires, right? We want to be aware of this and be smart. Put on our thinking caps. So if you're putting herbs around the candle, ideally have some space between the candle and the herbs so that when the candle burns down to the bottom, it's not going to light the herbs on fire, right? Or have like a ring of salt right around the base of the candle and then have the herbs on the outside of that salt ring, okay? So just practice fire safety. We're not going to commit arson by accident. We're not going to do it on purpose either. So we're just going to, practice fire safety. I'm sure any firefighters out there would agree with me. So just make sure that you're aware of that, how that could be working out. But if you want to be adding protection herbs around your candle or something like that, or if you want to add protection herbs around the other person's candle, absolutely do that. If you're going to add herbs that are going to, be more baneful in nature, that's a different thing. But we're just doing cord removal. So this is like just separation. It's not necessarily sending anything back to the other person other than their energy from the connection. So I want to specify there. Once we get into the territory of like sending stuff back in the sense of like, I want to make them hurt for what they did, that gets into baneful territory, which we're not going into today, but is a possibility. But like I said, we're not going to talk about that today. But when you are setting up the candles, just imagine one candle you, one candle the other person. And then when you're lighting those candles, I want you to light your candle first and then light the other person's candle. Or if you have the ability to light both at once, that's awesome. But if you have to light them one at a time, I would light yours first and then the other person's second, because you're the one initiating that cord removal as far as you know. So light yours and say, this candle represents me and my energy and my energetic body and self. And then light the other person's candle saying the same thing. This candle is representing so and so's energy and energetic self. And then allow those candles to burn down. And ideally, I want you to sit with the candles while they burn down completely, right? I want you to be there the entire time. And while it's burning down, when it gets close to the portion where one of the candles would start burning through the cord or the thread or the string, then you can say something along the lines of, I remove my energy from connecting with yours any longer. My energetic connection to you is severed. This is no longer a pathway that I choose to have open. Whatever feels right, to be honest. Like you can say a bunch of things that's basically just reiterating that of, I'm removing my energy from yours. However you want to phrase that, whatever feels right, it can just be, I'm removing my energy from you completely. This is done. This is ended. This connection is cauterized, right? It can be as simple as that, or you can go on and on about like how you're removing your energy from theirs. Like I said, whatever feels right and helps you to really feel as though you are believing that that's happening. To me, the more you feel connected to what you're saying, the more effective it will be. So say whatever you need to say in order to remove it, and then just let them burn down. And with cord removal in this specific sense, I don't think it matters too much of how the cords are burnt. Like sometimes people will say, oh, well, if the other person's candle burns the string first, then that means that you're not releasing that connection and stuff like that. In this specific situation, I don't think it matters because you're going in with the intention to remove that cord. If you were doing a cord removal, or a cord intentioned burning, or like spell or ritual that is similar, and you're wanting to know what kind of energies they're sending your way and stuff like that, that's when we would kind of get into more interpretation of that kind of stuff. But when you're just removing cords, I don't want you to think about that. I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, their candle burned the thread first, so that means that the cord isn't removed or it wasn't effective. Don't worry about that. All you're doing is literally just intending from your end that you are doing this for you and that you need to remove that energy. And then if you feel like you need to do it again later on, you can do it later on. But that is going to be effective regardless of how the candles burn, whether or not, that cord ends up getting burned at all, because sometimes the cord or the thread or something like that, the string, if you will, won't even be burned or it won't even be severed, right? And if that's the case, you can always cut it physically, like with a pair of scissors. If at the end neither of the candles burn through the cord, just cut it with scissors and say, I'm removing this connection. Or you can do that while the candles are burning down. Whatever feels right for you, whatever feels appropriate and helps you to process that. Because, truth be told, in my opinion, it's not really necessarily about what the candles themselves are doing, but what you are envisioning the candles to be doing, what you are intending the candles to be doing, and what you are physically doing within that space to facilitate an intention around what you want to happen. Does that make sense? So I want you to think about that when you're doing it. Don't rely on the candle itself to do all the work. It's okay for you to use scissors if you need to, or use a lighter and just burn the thread yourself, before it gets to them burning it. Like whatever feels right. But again, don't commit arson. It's bad. It's against the law. Now, getting outside of a physical thing, right? So we've gone over the options that you have in physical sense, both with a general cord removal or a specific cord removal. The general ones you can also use for specific ones, like having the magnetic example, right? You can use the magnets on two things, or imagine the main thing that you are removing the magnets from be that other person. So for example, maybe have your fridge become this other person for your example, or have a little metal, I don't even care if you go outside and you go to a light pole outside and you stick magnets to it and pretend that that light pole is this person that you're removing your energy from. Like, do whatever your heart says is right. Like, because if it's your fridge, maybe you'll, every time you use your fridge, you're like, oh, this represents, Becky now. Like, I can't do this. So whatever feels right, if you need to go out and find a metal pole somewhere that you can stick magnets to do this, like, do it to your heart's content, and it is okay. I give you permission to do that. You're not vandalizing unless you leave the magnets behind, and then I'm going to judge you a little bit because, like, why leave magnets, especially if they're cool ones? But find a metal surface that you can imagine being this other person, and then say, this metal surface, whether it's a light pole or not, this metal surface is representing this other person, right? This person, so and so, Becky Jones, and I'm removing my energy from that person. And the magnets that are attached, you just take them off one by one, and as you're doing that, just say, I am removing my energy from your energy and severing this connection, right? That's all you have to do. You can even say it out loud or in your head. You don't have to be that weird person like talking out loud where people are going on walks nearby and they're like, I don't know what's happening here, but I don't want to be involved. But just do whatever feels right. If your heart is telling you you need to say it out loud, you go ahead and do it. If it's saying we need to be quiet and look like a little normie here, that is okay too. I'm not going to judge either way. So that's an option as well. But if you have the ability to visualize, you can also visualize that other person in your head and just visualize the same thing. Maybe you're visualizing you unplugging yourself from that person's energy, or you're visualizing, pulling that cord away from you or removing it from your body, like unplugging yourself from their energy. Whatever feels right, whether it's you, unplugging from them or you unplugging them from you, whatever feels right in that moment is probably going to be the better option for you. Okay, so now that we've done cord removal, now how do you call your energy back? Because sometimes in cord removal, you are actually ending up bringing your energy back enough to where you don't feel like you have to do this separately. Sometimes I will remove cords, but then I feel like I need to also recall my energy just because it helps me to feel more like I am able to feel more whole, if that makes sense. One of the recent techniques that I have really enjoyed using for energy recall is actually masturbation. I've really enjoyed that because it helps me to have something productive that I'm doing. Because, listen, I'm a Virgo moon, okay? My emotions are something where I can process them if I'm doing something that I consider to be productive. So I'm going to be productive while also enjoying myself. So you can do it during those times if you feel comfortable, or if you don't want to do it during that, that's also okay. You can do it other times. We can do it through visualization as well, or like we said, with physical examples as well, which I will go over. So the first thing that we're going to go through is like the masturbation one. So as you are taking care of yourself, you can just imagine yourself kind of pulling that energy back. You don't have to have it from anyone in particular unless you want to. Like if they're like, let's say that you have an ex that you feel like you gave a lot of energy to, right? And you just feel like there's that energetic cord and you've removed the cord, but then you just kind of feel like you've left your energy with them. Just imagine them in your mind when you are, getting close, as we know. And then as you are about to get close and like climax, then just imagine all of that energy kind of being magnetized back to you. That is your energy, right? Have the energies, if you can visualize it, have the two energies, their energy and your energy, be two very different colors, like red and blue or black and white, whatever works, but so that you can visualize their energy staying with them and yours staying with yours. Because or yours coming to you, because if you have it two different colors, you're better able to differentiate between the two. Whereas if you only have them visualized as their energy is white and my energy is white, then it's harder to feel like it's really separated, right? So have it be two different colors, ideally, that you can really differentiate from each other when you're recalling your energy, so that if your energy is being visualized as, bright green in your mind, then when you're pulling it back, when you're magnetizing it to yourself before you climax, then you can really visualize that a lot better, and then sending all of their energy and keeping their energy to them, right? And or sending their energy that you might be holding back to them as that's happening. But I want you to do this all before you climax. And then when you climax, imagining the climax being the lock it in moment where you're pulling that energy back and then you're locking it into place, right? This is in my body now. This is where it's staying. This is where it's safe. It's locked in, kind of locking the door, if you will. And that's a technique that I've been using recently just because it's been feeling good for me on multiple levels, but like it's just been effective. The other examples that we can use for recalling your energy is, of course, just doing a visualization, whether you're wanting to meditate and do this or do it while you're, sitting at your desk, whatever works for you. You can do this while you're doing dishes, right? If you can be focused enough to do it during that, I'm not going to judge. So you can visualize the same thing that I was talking about, where that other person, or just in general, like just imagining your energy kind of being splayed out like a fan to the world or to all of the different connections that you have, and visualizing that energy coming back to you. If you're wanting something to say while you're doing this, because sometimes that can be helpful too, you can say out loud or in your head, I'm recalling all of my energy back to me, cleansed and without interference from others. I'm recalling my energy to come back to me whole and to revitalize my body, to revitalize my energy, to refill my cup, to refill my resources, whatever feels right. Um, you can say, I am recalling all of my energy. I'm pulling back all of my energy to myself. This is where it belongs. This is where it shall stay unless I purposefully give it away or I purposefully loan it to someone else. Whatever feels right, whatever sounds good. If you want to do a rhymey thing, you can. It's not necessary, but you can if it feels right. And just imagine your energy like a vacuum or like a river that is flowing back into itself or a tide that is coming in, right? That is being pulled towards you and back into your body. And then once you feel like it's fully back, then just, place a kind of barrier between your energy and the outer world or those other connections to kind of hold your energy in to revitalize or contain it so it's not spilling out again. um and so that's a visual example. If you're needing more of a physical one too, what you can do is use a cup with water and have a couple different cups with water in it. So let's say that you have like a main cup and then you have a couple like shot glasses or small cups of water or other cups of water that are representing the other people or groups of people or just the world in general. You can have two cups. Have one represent you and one represent the energy that you have given to others, the world, the people that you interact with, regardless of what it is. It doesn't have to be anyone specific. It can just be the general population, right? Anybody that you've ever interacted with. And then say the same thing, as you're pouring the water from the cup that's representing other people back into your cup, say, I am recalling my energy back to myself to represent that I am pulling my energy back. I am recalling it to the self. I'm revitalizing myself in my energetic body. I'm cleansing this energy from any ill intent or leftover, you know, energy that would not benefit me, things like that. Another way you can do it is also have just one cup that's representing the energy that you have given to others and then drink it as a way for you to imagine bringing your energy back to yourself. And obviously, in that situation, you would have to be imagining or like saying in your head the phrase of like, I'm recalling my energy and stuff. Again, you can also use a drawn example back to those little perfected stick figures. Like we can do that as well, where you have a couple little stick figures that you represent being specific people or the general population, and then just imagine uh you know draw lines coming from those people where you are imagining your energy being pulled back. Or if you want to have something that's kind of separated, you can have a little piece of paper that represents your energy that is put over or like placed on top of the group of people on the paper, and then you can slowly move it towards your stick figure on the paper, and then at the end you can cut the other people on the paper out like with scissors so that they're completely removed and your energy is only with you. There's so many different ways that you can do it. You can also use like stones, like crystals, or even marbles if you have them. Like, does anybody have marbles anymore? I used to have a huge marble collection as a kid. I don't know if people have marbles anymore, but if you do, or if you have like little, river rocks or, decorative beads, I don't know what you all have available to you, but have something that represents the energy that you've given to other people and then kind of splay it out on the floor. Like you can literally just sit on the floor and just kind of toss them out around you. And then as you're picking them up and pulling them closer to you and placing them in a pile, either in a pocket that you have, like maybe you have a sweatshirt and you're putting them in your pocket, or maybe you're just putting them in a pile by your feet or by your legs or, on the seat you're on or close to you on the desk. As you're doing that, say, I'm recalling my energy, I'm pulling my energy back from everywhere I have given it out to other people, and I'm recalling it to myself, cleansed and revitalizing my energy and things of that nature. Whatever feels like right. Like, have those visualization techniques, have those physical techniques to use so that when you're not being able to visualize, you're still able to do these things. Because this is this is a really important practice to have. Recalling your energy, protecting your energy. We can bubble ourselves, we can protect our energy as much as we want, but if you're not able to recall your energy, you're just kind of working from an empty cup. So I wanted to give you all the ability to have tools or visualization techniques or physical techniques that you can use to be able to recall that and bring it back to you, because that is an important part of practice. It's an important part of doing all of this and being able to like move through life without feeling like you are perpetually drained of your uh, life life-giving energy. But with that said, that is the tips that I will give you today on that topic. I hope this was helpful. I hope this brought you some ideas to use and try out and see if they work for you. But it's just an important technique that everybody should know how to use and do, because it is kind of a basic. So I wanted to go over that today. But before I go, I am booking sessions still. So if you are wanting to book with me an astrocartography session or an astrology session or a deity ID or a deity message, or I have been offering guide IDs every once in a while. So if you're wanting one of those, you can sign up for the sign up lists or the wait lists on those and get notified when they get restocked. But I have a lot of options, so you can go to my website, check those out. But at the very least, I just want to say thank you all for being so supportive and supporting the podcast, supporting me with everything happening with the potential of TikTok kind of going away or things like that happening. I just want to say that your support really does mean a lot, and it helps me to continue as I do my business. Oh, my lights turned on by themselves. That's interesting. Well, that's not something that I planned, and it's always fun times here. Welcome to my life. But with that said, I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all have had a good April, and I hope to see you in May. And yeah, if you are a subscriber, you can also head over to listening to the subscriber episode for this month. If you're not, think about or consider subscribing to the podcast to further support it. It's a really low cost every month to help support my work with it and help me to continue creating episodes for you. If you have any requests for topics or subjects or things that you would like me to go over in future episodes, don't be afraid to email ghosttpodcast@gmail.com, or you can email me through the Ghost Tea Podcast website or my own website, which is arielwillow.com. All right, I will talk to you all next month. Thank you so much, and I will see you later. Bye.